you're a young woman, you were a psychotherapist, and you started noticing that people were wired very differently. Their personalities were just intrinsically, their motivations, everything intrinsically so very different. So how did you leap from that understanding to where you are today in the notion that people are actually hybrid creatures ourselves?
Is that a big question?
Big leap.
I think the fact that I had worked with Lloyd in Ireland, and Lloyd being a leprechaun, and heard all about what leprechauns were like and also other elementals, that had to come first. If I hadn't have had that experience with a leprechaun, a nature spirit, who wanted to talk about working with humans and how they work with humans, I don't think I ever would have been able to make the leap, because I thought my life was devoted, as you said, as a psychotherapist, to work with humans. But having had that experience of the elementals and him saying that elementals had been incarnating into human evolution for thousands of years, especially hundreds of years, gave me the inroads, sort of the foundation, so that when some different kind of people started coming to me in psychotherapy, I was able to say, I think this could be an elemental hybrid.
Well, the work of Dr. Linda Backman, I don't know if you're aware of her. I believe she's in Boulder, Colorado. She is a psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. She uses hypnotherapy a lot and regression work on people. And what's happened in recent years is more and more of her clients, a large percentage of them now, are coming in saying they remember incarnating here also from other places, more kind of star system people, which also feeds into this hybrid reflection that you're talking about, because you have different categories of hybrid beings, including those from the cosmos, just from the stars. And she's just seeing a tremendous uptick in that right now. So can you tell me your own view on that?
When I started seeing so many people that were elemental hybrids, and I realized they felt they didn't fit in, that they weren't exactly human. And they had certain characteristics, which I started to identify with elementals, such as addictions, for example. It could be addictions to alcohol or drugs or sex. These are one of the characteristics. Charming. Then I started seeing people who were not elemental hybrids, but they still felt that they didn't fit in. And I started to realize that some of them were also hybrids. And so I started to investigate that more closely. And from that, I've come up with 22 possible hybrids evolving on the earth. And I researched all the myths of the world and also archaeological and scientific evidence about these various possible hybrids that I was noticing, because I thought that would help create a bridge for people between, oh my God, this is a weird idea, we better throw it out, to, hey, she's right. There really are myths around the world, for example, of dragons and the certain characteristics of dragons. So that helped me a lot. I've been involved with this now for probably about 25 years, but I didn't write a book about it until about, 8 years ago.
I love the book. It's such a fun book. And it's interesting because when you go, and here it is right here, hybrid, so you think you're human. When you go into this, of course, everybody loves a good kind of typing ourselves and categorizing ourselves. Everybody loves that. Everyone loves, 5 ways to know this and that about yourself. Well, this one is a little more complex than that, but it's fascinating because when you go into it, you have to look at the ups and downsides of each of these creatures, each of these hybrid creatures that we are. And oftentimes we go in because of more kind of common lore, especially in the New Age community. Well, I'm a being of light, so I'm an angel, and that sort of thing. So we make these assumptions about what kind of being we are. And when you start looking at it, take a little self-test in the book and looking at it, you find out you might be something entirely different than that. So you had to go through this with yourself, and you've been through this journey with a number of people, and you give examples of each one in the book. How often are people surprised by the type that they appear to be representing in this lifetime?
I think it, for most people, is reassuring that they feel, oh, at last I can see myself. I'm not going crazy. I understand now why my relationships are as they are. I understand why I chose the work in the world that I chose. I understand why I get irritated at blah, blah,
Yeah.
So for many people, it's, thank goodness.
Yeah, I can see that. In fact, I was talking with a couple of women this morning about the book prior to doing this interview. And the reason I brought the other one up is because, so-and-so told me I'm an angel, so-and-so told me I'm a fairy. But the reality is, for me, certainly when I looked into it and had it's kind of self-analysis on one level, besides the self-test, I thought, wow, that fits. I mean, nothing fits 100%, but it fits a good 80 to 90%. And it did explain a lot about my personality, how I behave and interface in the world. And it so happened that's the one you intuitively understood as my type as well. And there is a reassurance that comes with that. Don't try to be something you're not, whatever that is. I hope you're enjoying this video, because if you are, there are dozens more like it on my site, all supported by people like you. So if you'd like to keep this work rolling in and join our community, just click on the Patreon button at reginameredith.com. That also gives you access to insider commentary, my live book club, and other live events with special guests. So join in. Thanks. The notion of junk DNA, the fact that science cannot figure out what we are. Could it be that it's influenced by the fact that we are these hybrid creatures and carry a different DNA from each of these types of beings?
Science has only been able to figure out a very small amount of DNA and what it does. And so we have junk DNA, which is really RNA DNA, as you know, and we are only able to look at physically what's happening at this point. And I'm talking about the programming that is happening more on the etheric level, that we're being programmed by these, by spirit and the wonderful beings that are helping us with our evolution. And we're being programmed by these in an etheric level. So that's on a causal and an astral and etheric level. And science just can't trace that yet.
Right.
So I think that they're going to be able to in the future. And even when things become physical, we know that right now we are developing hybrid beings like the polar bear and the grizzly bear in Canada have now mated to make a fertile hybrid. Or you've got, a bottlenose dolphin that has bred with a kind of whale that's called a wolfen. If this happens so easily in nature, why can't we embrace the fact that we also have been influenced by many different evolutions, which are well known in our myths?
Absolutely. And this all comes down to the notion of having a body elemental that is with us and continually with us as we develop lifetime to lifetime. And this is imprinted with where we were originally from, for example. Is that a fair way to say it? So that imprint is always coming in with us.
Absolutely. So I think that we've got the collective consciousness of humanity. We have this hybrid nature that comes into us, and then we have our particular ancestry that comes down through our parents. So right now, when we're talking about where do we get our nature, we're only looking at the ancestry of our parents. We're not looking at these other two areas. This is coming. And so I categorized people into, oh, it sounds so terrible. I categorized people. But I developed three major categories for hybrids. There's the elemental category, and there's tons of them, gnomes and leprechauns and goblins and tree divas and all this. And these are beings that have a parallel evolution as humans on this planet. And so they create all the wonderful nature, and they're a little bit higher frequency than what we are. And that's the first major category. Then there's the second category, which I call the human cousins. And the human cousins are the beings that started their evolution with the humans, but they broke off their evolution at some point in time and went into the sea, for example. So we have the whales, we have the dolphins. We know, for example,
Mer people, the mer people from the sea, which a lot of people relate to very strongly on this planet, dolphins and mermaids, mer people.
Absolutely. And I am going to be writing about the world of the mer people at some point.
Oh, I'm so excited.
I am. This book is down the road. They also are in a little higher frequency than us, but there are legends all over the world about this green race that existed at one time. And in Sumeria, for example, they talked about Oannes, who was a half human, half fish god who brought civilization to the Sumerians. And he was one of these mer people.
Right.
Yeah, so those are some of the human cousins. And then we have this whole other category, which are the star people, the cosmic people. And there you have the dragons, you have the Horus beings, who are the bird beings of the Egyptians. You have the angels, yes, and there are more angel hybrids than any other star people. So it's probably true that a lot of people, when they say, "Oh, I'm an angel," they could be right, actually. But there were elves also that came originally from Sirius. And they're a star being, and there are the pan hybrids.
Also Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, yes, that Zachariah Sitchin talked about in the book, The 12th Planet. And he and I agree on some of the things he says about the Anunnaki, and on some maybe not, I wouldn't say identical thinkings. So yes, these are all beings that have entered our evolution, obviously with the permission of the karmic board and the beings who oversee our evolution, to help us in some way to develop a quality in some way. That doesn't mean it isn't going to, at some point, have rocky road things happening to us, and especially with the Anunnaki.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So every person that is on this planet, would you say all of us are imprinted with some kind of more ancient template, whether it, as you say, whether it's elemental, star people, etc.? Is every one of us one of these, or a multiple, kind of even a hybrid of a hybrid, would you say? Are there any just humans that have none of these imprints?
I can't say honestly that I know the answer to that, in that I don't know every person.
Very well, that's true. Okay, so the people that you have met so far kind of fall into one or another of these types of hybrid beings, these typologies.
Yes, and I think that there are other typologies that I finally at 22 said, enough, Helliwell. Let's just focus on those, because those are the ones you understand and see the best and can find the mythic evidence in the world for, or the scientific evidence for. But there are others that I didn't, that I thought, this is a possibility, and I didn't go into it.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you might also want to consider joining Patreon, which allows me to keep all of this content free and available to everyone. And if you're looking for like-minded souls, you might also enjoy my online community called Our Neighborhood. Links to join are in the description.